Good afternoon. Welcome back to this workshop on meditations for letting go of attachment. And this afternoon session, we're going to continue to explore um, how to create the conditions that will facilitate the letting go of attachment. So, in the morning session, I touched on this practice of Tonglen, where we try to get in touch with uh, the people that we are close to, that we may be attached to, and try to see if we can become aware of, the whole person, so to speak, especially paying attention to aspects of the person that we are very likely uh, to reject or to suppress, to deny, and to not willing to be aware of. So that is, we invite those aspects to come into awareness, to breathe them in, representing those aspects in a certain form. Right? In my case, I use a dark smoke. Yeah, doesn't necessarily mean that they are bad, but it just give an indication that we have a natural tendency. This is the aspect that are neglected, because for some reason or another, we actually find them maybe unacceptable, or we are unwilling to attend to them. Yeah. And we don't just take them in, we take them in as a way of invoking compassion. We try to hold them and respond to them with compassion. Yeah. And on the other hand, we breathe out, we send forth something really positive and radiant out of an expression of loving kindness. So this is to help us to make some changes to the way we relate to the others, and try to see the other person in a different light. But attachment is not only to do with the image we hold about the other person. Those images and ideas we hold about others that we project onto them, including our expectations on them, are also very closely related to how we view ourselves, how we see ourselves, the kind of views, the beliefs, the opinions we hold about ourselves. So those two kind of images, others and self, are closely related. So, for example, for some of us, we might have a tendency to keep all the bad stuff to ourselves. We have a tendency to view or to take responsibility for all that is negative or not nice. We sort of weigh on ourselves, so they become part of me. So, of course, then we can understand all the good things, all the perfect things are associated with the other. So we have this kind of polarization where the view of the others is so perfect and so good. The view of self is so bad and so imperfect. It's full of flaws. And of course, naturally, we will be very attached to this perfect image of the other person, because it would be this is precisely what I need to complete myself, to fulfill myself, to heal myself. Right? And situation like that, the attachment is very, very strong, because there's this instinctive reaction to grasp onto this such a wonderful image of another person. And to release that attachment, it's not enough that we get in touch with the reality of the other person. At best, we just decided, well, we just change another person, because I'm still bad, I'm still flawed, I'm still incomplete. So I just go and look for another one. Yeah. And that didn't solve the fundamental problem with attachment. We merely changed the focus. So in order to address the full issue of attachment, not only do we need to come to be in touch with the reality of others, we also need to be in touch with the reality of ourselves, to look into how we view ourselves. What are some of the views, some of the images and ideas that we hold about self? And to investigate whether are they accurate, are they in touch with reality, or are they just my own fantasy, or are they due to certain conditionings that I'm exposed to or that I have taken on board as a result of my life experiences. So self becomes this afternoon's subject of investigation. And the first layer of investigating the self, we can call it the more conventional relative layer, is to look at the self, the ideas of self. It's probably not possible for us to do without ideas. Ideas are a very important component of the way we understand the world, the way we make sense of everything, and it's also the means through which we engage in thinking. Yeah, all the wonderful ability of our thinking abilities, remembering, imagining, creating, making new connections. Everything you rely on concepts and ideas. And otherwise, knowing another person or knowing ourselves depend very much on forming different ideas, learning to try to find more and more accurate ideas to describe others as well as ourselves. Although in spiritual literature, you may come across, sometimes people say to see things, even including Buddhist literature, see things as they are, or to see another or to relate another without image, without idea. Practically speaking, I think maybe, I'm not so sure whether that is possible. We probably would still have to make use of ideas. We definitely need ideas in order to think about other people. Because thinking involves bringing to mind different ideas and concepts. Some of those are what we call memories. But nonetheless, we need to go through that. We need to rely on that. So I think it may not be so realistic to aim for having no idea at all, which is as good as not knowing anything at all, so to speak. Yeah. But we hold ideas and images lightly and be willing to update them as we get to know more, get to know someone better, as we become aware of changes that's happening to them in their life or within their inner life. Yeah. So we still have to work with ideas, but it's just hopefully we deal with ideas that are more and more closer to reality, more in touch with reality. Ideas will most probably not be 100% equivalent to the actual reality, but we can bring it closer, so that it serves a better function in representing that reality. So just as we try to update our ideas, our understanding of others, try to refine our understanding, try to overcome and let go of very distorted, mistaken, biased images and ideas of others. Likewise, we can also do that for ourselves. We can also come to know ourselves better, come to include welcome into our awareness those aspects of ourselves that may be regarded as unwanted, unpleasant, unhelpful, and that we have a tendency to deny them, to suppress them, to push them out of awareness. Why not see if we can, let them in, but not just let them in, but to be able to respond to them with a different attitude, with compassion, just as we did for others. We can also do it for ourselves. For example, in this session, already I can feel myself. We're most probably going to fall asleep when we meditate, which is a natural kind of response to the conditions of this afternoon session. Then how do we relate to that experience of ours in meditation? How do we view ourselves if we do fall asleep? Quite often in meditation circle, or at least when I'm able to hear how people react to that, it's often very negatively. We view ourselves very badly. Seems like we've done something terrible to fall asleep in the afternoon, which is probably the most natural thing to do. So by changing the context, place it in meditation, suddenly it becomes not a good thing at all. It's a terrible, bad thing to do if you were to fall asleep in your meditation. And most of the time you can't help it, isn't it? It's not like you choose to fall asleep, which is a different matter. But the fact that sleepiness just descends upon you, and whether you like it or not, you might find yourself dozing off or feeling very drowsy for quite an extended period of time. So those are things that happen to us. But how do we view them? How do we react to them? Say a lot about ourselves. Is it possible for us to recognize that, let's say I'm drowsy and feeling sleepy, or I actually fall asleep during the meditation, and subsequently looking back and realizing what has happened. How do I relate to myself? How do I relate to that experience? Do I beat myself up? Do I feel bad? Do I feel guilty? Do I feel ashamed? Do I feel that's perfectly fine? Do I allow myself to enjoy the nap since it already happened? So that kind of can see that there are a lot of different attitudes involved. So what I'm trying to make the point is, using that example, is it possible for us to relate to this fact of I'm feeling very sleepy, I fall asleep in my meditation as a fact? Well, that happens, right? And also to recognize that it's most probably I didn't do it intentionally. So I might be able to respond to it in a more compassionate way, instead of one of blaming, one of seeing as affirming the fact that I'm no good or that I'm a lousy meditator, to just see as what it is. I fall asleep, and having fallen asleep, and later I woke up and continued with the meditation. So here I'm going to invite you to do toning, but the subject, the focus is of course ourselves. Breathing in. See if we can again use an image. I use smoke, dark smoke. I'm very lacking in creativity in this instance. I'll think of the smoke coming out of all the different corners and bits and pieces of myself, as if they are hidden. Most of the time, I'm unaware of these aspects of myself. They are pushed out of my awareness. They belong to the shadow because they are unacceptable. They have been rejected. There could be awful stuff about myself, And now I'm inviting them in. I'm breathing in bit by bit, slowly at our own pace, no hurry. Let a bit of it in into a heart, represented by the dark smoke. I don't know what exactly it represents. I just represent it. Breathe it in. Let it come into my system, into my heart, and see if I can do so with a kind of with a compassionate attitude. As if I'm responding to this with compassion. May I be free from suffering and the causes of suffering. Or in a more elaborate way, may I be free from pain and sorrow. May I find healing. May I find peace. It's how I say to myself. Yeah. And likewise, on the reverse, on the out breath, or when you're ready to send forth, I radiate something really bright from within the heart. And almost as if it starts to illuminate all parts of my body and mind from within. It's sort of radiating out inside. And this is an expression of loving kindness. May I find happiness and the causes of happiness. Or in a more elaborate way, sometimes I would say, may I live in safety. May I be happy. May I be healthy. May I live with ease. Right? So that is the basic idea of toning meditation for self. But the most important aspect actually is this part of letting into one's awareness. The dark smoke that represent all that is unwanted or unaccepted by ourselves, and to respond to them with compassion, to be able to hold them, not cling on to them, but hold them, support them with compassion. So have compassion towards my sleepiness, towards my laziness, towards my own mistakes, towards aspects of myself that I'm not very approve of. To have this and to not reject them, but instead to be able to let them come into awareness and held in compassion. And by so doing, I hope to change and slowly, bit by bit, I'm changing the way I view myself. I see myself, to the extent that no longer do I need to truncate myself and banish one part of it into the darkness of not knowing, and try desperately to get on with life with just one portion of it, or trying some kind of endless self-improvement project to improve whatever it is that I find inside here. Instead, it's like changing the attitude. Maybe what is already here is it's not perfect, but it's the reality of this moment, and I can. It's like telling myself, well, I can live with this. I can live with this. I can work with this. I can slowly make necessary changes. But at this moment, I can extend love and compassion to myself just as I am, and in so doing, change the way we view ourselves, the way we relate to ourselves, the way we feel about ourselves. And as we change this self-image, so to speak, this view of self, naturally you will filter out and we change the view of others, and what we need from others, what we expect from others. All this will start to change. And as of course the views change, the way we respond, the way we interact to one another also change. So that's how, bit by bit, in an almost not so obvious way, we are undermining our attachment. We are undermining our habits of attachment. We are undermining all these habituated reactions of attachment. And before we know it, suddenly we may recognize that my attachment is loosened. It's not the only way we react to things. It's become one among many different options. And sometimes we might find that we no longer react out of attachment. We start to behave a bit differently. Why? Because we feel differently. Why do we feel differently? Because we literally see things differently. We see from a different point of view. Therefore, we think about it differently. We feel differently, and of course, I behave differently. I respond differently. And so that shift has happened, and it's just a matter of time when we might find that already some of our attachments have been let go of. They have just dropped off along the way. Sometimes we don't even notice it until quite some time has passed before we realize, hey, I've been behaving a bit strangely lately. I've been feeling a bit different. I've been seeing things seem to appear to me differently, and I actually feel different. Because I feel different, I find myself responding to things differently. So that the grip of attachment has already been loosened. And I think that is very possible if we work on the central idea I'm trying to sell, so to speak, to be in touch with reality, and in so doing to facilitate the process of release. Okay, so let's do a meditation, even though it will be most probably a sleeping meditation, which is fine. We can have a good 25 minutes nap, and then we will be refreshed and awake and alert for the rest of this workshop. Most probably I will fall asleep. Actually, I feel quite sleepy at this moment. So if suddenly, and it has happened to me before, I was guiding a meditation, and then I didn't actually fall asleep, but I think I blanked out for an extended period of time, or at least it felt like I was gone for a long time. So when I finally came around, in my mind I was thinking, now, I don't know how long I was gone. I can't remember where I was at the meditation. So I decided in that occasion to just keep quiet and remain silent for the rest of the meditation. Nobody complained. Maybe they noticed it, but no one complained. So that might happen in this session. If suddenly at some odd places I just went silent completely and never come back, well, you're on your own in your meditation. You can guess what happened to me, all right? But I wouldn't beat myself up for that. Yeah, it's just an unfortunate incident, so to speak. Yeah. Okay, so I'm going to invite you to practice tongling in relation to oneself, making use again of two very different, almost opposite images to stand in. One is to stand in for the unwanted aspects of ourselves, unpleasant experiences of ourselves, the suffering of ourselves, and to see if we can invite that into awareness as we breathe in, or depending on whether you want to use the breath or not, and to be able to hold that and respond to that with a compassionate attitude. And then on the out breath, or on the phase of sending forth, to use a different image and to radiate that positive image to oneself, to embrace oneself, to fill up oneself as an expression of genuine loving kindness towards ourselves. And by alternating these two at our own pace, we can start to explore. So we start with the image, but maybe as we do that, as we breathe in or let in dark smoke, in my case, you can choose other images or other textures or experience. You may find that it triggers memories, different memories, different images, different ideas bubble up from who knows where. And if they are appropriate, and you say, yes, these are some of the things that are represented by that dark smoke, why not breathe them in or let them in as well? And see if we can hold them, respond to them with compassion. Same thing, sending forth radiating light or whatever it is towards oneself. In the midst of it, sometimes it triggered images, images of what is appropriate and what is longed for by us, the what we really look for, the different type of happiness, different causes of happiness. And if possible, appropriate, we can wish that for ourselves. Or may you find this happiness. May you be able to gather such causes for one's own happiness out of loving kindness. Okay, so let's do a meditation together. Invite you to, just as before, take a few moments and settle your body in a suitable meditation posture. Even the posture can be an expression of being in touch with ourselves, be aware of ourselves, and to express compassion and loving kindness. So maybe in this session, not such a good idea to lie down. If you can sit up, it's better. Lying down is almost like a complete invitation to have an afternoon nap. Sitting up, try to find a posture that is not painful to you, that does not introduce unnecessary discomfort or pain. Instead, choose one that corresponds to the condition of your body in this moment, and a posture that feels supportive and safe. So feel free to sit on any chair if it's comfortable. Of course, you can sit on the floor, on the cross-leg posture, on a cushion. Take care that the posture you adopt allow your back to be naturally upright in the sitting posture. And we don't need to tense up our back muscles to somehow straighten the back. Anyway, it's the wrong type of muscles to use. So simply just maybe you can feel free to move your upper body left and right, front and back, and just allow the body to find a suitable position for itself. Rest our arms and hands on some kind of physical support. And feel free to close your eyes completely. Of course, you can also, and if it's all right for you, to leave them open or half open to let some light in, which might stimulate the mind. Allow the body time to find its way into the posture, to settle back and settle down into the meditation posture. So we're going to start the meditation by first attending to the sensations of the breath within the body. Reconnecting, returning attention to the breath sensations is one way we can persuade our attention to come back here and now. And not only to attend to the breath, but also to connect with the body, to check in and notice alongside the breath how the body is doing, what sort of sensations are present here and now in our own body. Breathing out, remember, is an opportunity to release. So at any point, as we notice a natural out-breath, feel free in your own mind to say the word release, a reminder to your own body and mind that they can release, they can put aside anything unhelpful or unnecessary. And throughout this and the subsequent meditation, there's no need to be upset if we find our attention is easily distracted elsewhere, that we find our attention is preoccupied with other things. This is a very normal thing for our mind to do. Once we become aware of it, we can always very patiently, very gently invite our attention to come back here and now, to come back to what we are meditating on. And whenever you feel ready, you are most welcome to begin toning meditation for oneself, taking and sending, taking and giving for oneself. Breathing in, imagine drawing out from different parts of your body all aspects of oneself that we may have felt to be unacceptable, unwanted, unpleasant. Our share of suffering, of pain, of disappointments, certain aspects of our personality, of our behavior, certain aspects of our body, maybe, that we find objectionable, that we dislike, that we much rather not have. So all of these unwanted aspects, represent them in a suitable form, in my case, dark smoke. And as I breathe in bit by bit, letting them into my system, my awareness, my own heart, and I try to bring forth a compassionate response, one that we can express in words as, may I be free from suffering and the causes of suffering. Coming back to the breath, we do get distracted, we do get confused, feel quite sleepy, quite drowsy, which is fine. As much as possible, when you can manage it, just invite your attention to come back here and now, to come back to whatever is happening in this moment, including the breath, including be aware of the sounds in your surrounding, be aware of bodily sensations in your own body. And when you feel ready, go back into toning, breathing in, take in a small amount of that darkness or dark smoke that represents what is rejected by oneself. Taking a small amount of it, like come all the way into one's system, into one's own heart, with the intention to respond to it out of compassion. May I be free from suffering and the causes of suffering. So coming back to the breath, when you feel ready, you can alternate. Focus now on the out breath, breathing out, releasing. Take this opportunity to release, to send forth something really bright, radiant, uplifting, and offer that to oneself. I will visualize from my heart, radiant, bright light shine forth, maybe accompanied with a feeling of warmth. And imagine that brightness and warmth spread from the heart, bit by bit, to the different parts of the body, touching all the various aspects of my body, and by extension, the aspects of my own mind, conveying loving kindness. May I find happiness and the causes of happiness. And then at a pace that you feel comfortable, that you can manage without feeling rushed or hurried, alternate the two. Sometimes focusing on receiving, taking in, maybe associated with the in-breath if you so wish. Let in that darkness, the dark smoke. Let in those unwanted, rejected aspects of oneself and one's experiences, and hold them with compassion. Breathe out, send forth more of that brightness, that radiance, that warmth, to embrace oneself, to extend loving kindness to ourselves. Coming back to here and now, not to be too disturbed by distraction or sleepiness, which are common experiences for meditating at this time of the day. We just do our best to come back, reconnect with the breath, and continue with tongue meditation. Coming back to tongue meditation here and now, breathing in, letting in our own image that represent all that is unaccepted, unwanted, rejected aspects of ourselves and our experiences. Be open to welcome in images from one's own memories, ideas, thoughts. Ideas and thoughts that relate to what has been represented by the dark smoke. Take a good look at them when they do arise. Recognize them for what they are, and maybe even acknowledge why they landed in this category. And then allow it to come all the way into our own heart so that we can invoke a different way of relating to them. one of compassion. In a more elaborate form, I would say to myself, may I be free from pain and sorrow. May I find healing. May I find peace. Coming back to here and now, occasionally see if we can arouse the energy of the mind, re-establish our attention in the present moment, reconnect with the breath sensations if you're using the breath as a support. On the out breath, or when you're ready to release, imagine sending forth something really beautiful, really positive, a very wonderful image to represent the expression of one's own loving kindness towards oneself. Imagine seeing it penetrating, filling up, extending throughout one's body and mind. So coming back to this moment, to the breath, if everything seems very confused, the mind come under the heavy influence of drowsiness, see if you can, as you breathe in and acknowledge the experiences of sleepiness or even falling asleep, see if we can relate to it from a place of compassion. Instead of feeling we are doing wrong thing, we're doing it badly, see if we simply acknowledge what has happened and respond with compassion. May I be free from suffering and the causes of suffering. So as we continue for the last few minutes of the meditation, continue letting in, taking in the dark smoke, radiating light towards oneself. Maybe in this session, maybe not, but we will come to get a view of ourselves, how we have been viewing ourselves, the kind of self-images that we hold of ourselves, the kind of ideas that we are hanging on to. And as this come into awareness, as we become in touch with more and more of all these cherished images and ideas, just the act of becoming aware of them is already capable of bringing about change, bringing about transformation. And then finally, we can conclude this tonic meditation for self on a very positive note. Imagine as you breathe in, you're somehow taken on board all the dark smoke, all the unwanted aspects of oneself has somehow been taken in, been held in compassion, and we are completely free of them. Breathing out, we send forth light or whatever equivalent you're using, and all this positive energy, this expression of loving kindness has come to fill up our entire body. Every part of the body is touched by that light, by that radiance and brightness, so that no part of the body is somehow unaffected. So a difficult session to meditate, really. Yeah, but just as usual, due to our scheduling, because when I'm doing retreat on my own, I usually schedule a very long break after lunch. I can have a nap and go for a walk and do other things, so that I don't need to. There's no real hard and fast reason why I must meditate immediately after lunch. Yeah. Instead, it's more natural to respect the cycle of our energy and so on and so forth. Yeah. But you also give us an opportunity to extend compassion and loving kindness towards oneself. If the different experiences in our meditation is not up to our expectation or we want it to be like this and it turned out to be like that. Just a wonderful opportunity for us to be in touch with what actually happened in our meditation, and yet at the same time to be able to respond to that with compassion and loving kindness, and not make it into yet another example to reinforce certain whatever existing view we have of ourselves, especially view of self that is not helpful. The more we are able to be in touch with different aspects of ourselves, the different habits that we have, and also become more aware of the kind of images, self-images, and ideas that we have somehow taken on board, and we are viewing ourselves through those self-images, or we view ourselves as one of those images, or we are constantly comparing ourselves to those images and ideas. A source of great distress most of the time, because especially if you hold up self-image that are very unrealistically perfect or good or whatever not, and we are forever falling short of it. And this set up a certain dynamic within ourselves, and it stirs up certain very familiar feelings and reactions, and make it all the more likely for us to look beyond ourselves, outside ourselves, for happiness, and then to become very attached to those perceived sources of happiness outside of ourselves. Whereas when we are able to see ourselves as who we are, or as close as we can, and yet, in spite of that, in spite of what we find, able to feel compassion, loving kindness for oneself, able to extend those wonderful feelings towards ourselves, we may realize that even as I am, I'm able to feel love, able to love, and therefore able to just be happy with myself as I am. When we can find that source of happiness within ourselves, our reliance on external source of happiness, our clinging and attachment to perceived sources of happiness outside of ourselves naturally becomes weaker and weaker. Because then we are able to relate to the different people in our life, those that we love, we care for, from a very different place, not as a place of neediness and therefore clinginess, but as a place of such wonderful interactions between two human beings. So that's how I see this practice. Okay, so still, I assume things are still all right since I don't get any complaints so far. But if you do have some questions or anything that I said is unclear, please feel free to type it into the live chat. Okay, and the last bit of today's workshop, I want to look at the deeper cause of attachment. This is of course, from the Buddhist perspective. Perspective of why, in the first place, we become attached is because deep down. So just now, what we look at our conventional level of self, conventional level of how we view ourselves, how we relate to ourselves. Now we're going to look a bit deeper beyond that, into the deeper level, the reality of oneself. Of course, in Buddhism, attachment and its opposite, hatred, are rooted in what we call ignorance. Ignorance, not in the sense of not knowing, more in the sense of misknowing, knowing reality in a mistaken way. And of course, one of the most important mistake we make is in relation to self. Deep down within us, it is said, according to the Buddhist teaching, we hold on to a view of self, the view of an existence of a self. And this self is this is very deep and it's very instinctive. We hold that there is a kind of self here in the very center of all our experiences. This one way to express this, the different way of expressing it. I prefer to describe it this way, more experiential, not so philosophical, is that we feel or we believe, and also that's a little bit of how we experience our reality is right in the middle of my moment-to-moment experiences. I'm seeing. I really feel that there is someone or something like behind my eyes, looking outside. So I'm inside, and there's all these other things that's outside. From in the middle of my seeing experience of seeing is a seer, an experiencer, a subject. Likewise, we're listening or hearing. From there's something here that is listening, that's doing the hearing. With thoughts, there is a thinker in the middle of this experience. So there's this experiencer in Indian religion, not Buddhism. It's very funny. They actually call the self. There's Atma, the self, the eater. Eater with a capital E. Eat. That is like a consumer. The ultimate consumer here. That is responsible for consuming, for eating. I mean, eating literally as in food. So we consume experiences, but likewise, we can consume experiences through eyes, through ears, through nose, through mouth, through body, and even through thoughts, through fantasy, through imagination. We consume. We are insatiable. So always we need to feed it, otherwise the eater, the experiencer get bored and seems like the end of the world, and we must somehow keep it at peace, satisfied before it become hungry again. So this is one way experientially we can. So we have this self sitting, this whole lump sitting in the middle of our experiences, and it seems for us naturally the most precious thing of all. Somehow must protect it and make sure that its needs are fulfilled. It's always in the way, some of us is somehow never good enough, or whatever it is we get, never somehow fulfill it. It's always dissatisfied. And of course, which is why we end up with attachment and hatred. We reach out and we try to grab hold of whatever it is that we desire, pleasure. We try to hold on to it to satisfy this self. And whatever is threatening or harmful to this self or bring forth unpleasant feeling, I want to get rid of it. I want to destroy it. So attachment and likewise hatred in Buddhism is rooted in this view of self, which according to the Buddha is mistaken. That doesn't mean that we don't exist. It just means that we will be able to perceive our reality very differently. I always think of it as a different perspective. At the moment, we are stuck with our current perspective. It's like a frame. For one reason or another, we sort of decided that to view the world through this particular frame. And so since day one, or as far as we can remember, we have been carrying this frame with us, and we experience everything through this frame. This frame, of course, is very unusual. This frame divides our experience into maybe 2 parts or 3 parts, depending on how you want to see. One part that is sort of closer to here is called self, and the part that's further away is called other, other object, other people. And we somehow feel that in between, sometimes we can think that there is this activity that is called seeing, doing, whatever it is, to connect the two. And that is how we're walking around from the moment we are awake. And we do that even in sleep, in dreams. Yeah, the frame is almost perpetually in place. And what the frame did, according to Buddhism, is it distorts the reality. It distorts the underlying, the actual experience. And so we are perpetually interpreting the experience, based on this frame. And because of this, the frame, we often feel incomplete. Because why? Because the frame chop our experience into at least two halves, self and others. And no matter how much we are able to experience others, how well we can interact with others, they're often other than us. There's often this sort of sense of being isolated. been alienated. And there's nothing we can do. No matter how hard we try, we often end up in the same place, which is, of course, because of the frame. But occasionally, I like to think that maybe someday ignorance got a little bit tired before sleep, and the frame was temporarily put aside. And you can read about this, or you yourself may have experienced it. And suddenly, the experience shift and become very different. And usually, it's very effortless, no effort involved. It just shift, and then instead of the world being so clearly demarcated into at least two parts, and we are forever trying to be intimate with that, trying to take that in or be closer to that. Suddenly, the world is as intimate as it can possibly be. There is no separation. The separation just disappears. It's not here at all. And it's also very difficult to describe because it violates the structure of our language. Our language is firmly based on that frame. I see the sunset. This is what I used to struggle a lot with this sunset thing, because they always say that when this most romantic kind of most spiritual view of the sunset is, somehow you dissolve yourself into the sunset and there's only the sunset. And every time I saw a sunset, I tried to somehow get rid of the self. But of course, with the frame firmly in place for me, it's a futile effort. But occasionally, for some of us, the lucky few, we probably are lucky in our own way. The frame temporarily is put aside, and we have this effortless experience of the self not being anywhere in sight, and yet everything is all right. In fact, everything is better than all right. Everything is quite perfectly as it ought to be, And this has happened with scenery, sight, usually in nature, and happen with sound, with music, when you suddenly lose all sense of self-consciousness, self-awkwardness. The listener disappeared into just the music. And this can happen to bodily experiences as well. I'm not so sure about food, but bodily experiences as well. The body disappeared. The self, the separate self, the self and the body sort of merge and becomes one, so to speak. Yeah. And in meditation, this is probably more often we can experience it. In relation to meditation on the breath, for example, just to give an example of the possibility. When we start meditating on the breath, we have a very strong sense of separation. Me, the meditator, and somewhere here, there, or wherever is the breath, the object. And so I'm supposed to focus on the breath. And some days I do it well. I give myself a pat. Oh, I'm meditating very well. It's a good meditation. Someday, for some bizarre reason, you simply cannot focus on the breath. The mind is constantly being distracted. And me, as a meditator, feels really frustrated with that experience. Something must be wrong with me. What's going on? Why am I keep failing at this meditation of mindfulness of the breath? We feel terrible. We feel upset. We may even give up meditation. But if we persevere, maybe not long, maybe one day, suddenly, in your meditation itself on mindfulness of the breath, you notice there's no meditator here anymore. There's no more struggle. No more struggle of staying with the breath or coming back to the breath. There's only just an awareness of the breath flow. And that's all. The breath flow in and out all by itself. Nothing to do with me, nothing to do with the self. And along with that natural flow of the in and out breath, it's just an awareness. Just an awareness, a noticing of the ever-changing sensations of the breath. And yet, throughout the whole experience, there is no need to divide it up into a self, a subject, a meditator, and then an object of meditation. That separation drop off temporarily, briefly in our meditation. The frame is removed, and we see the world, we see the experience in a different light. And when that happens, that all point us to the possibility of what is the ultimate solution to attachment. The ultimate solution to attachment is to be able to shift from the current frame, the current perspective, to a different frame, a different perspective on reality. One that is not so divided, one that does not insist on dividing everything into two, into a self, a subject, and an object. That somehow we can possible for us to experience reality in a very different form. Sometimes people call it being intimate with everything, because the sense of self has disappeared in that perspective. Now, the sense of self has disappeared doesn't mean that we have disappeared, okay? It's just that we no longer see things, experience things, think of things in the same old way. It's always an I, an I, an I. And since the I disappeared, all our self-centeredness also disappear with it. After all, if you don't think of I, how can you be self-centered in that sense? And that frees us, according to Buddhism, from our attachment and our hatred. And instead, in this other perspective, it's natural for us to respond with compassion, with loving kindness. If the focus is others, naturally there is compassion and loving kindness for others. It just flows naturally. And if the focus is on oneself as a person here, then naturally there is compassion and loving kindness for this one person here. Right? So that is, according to Buddhism, the ultimate solution to attachment. I'm not able, of course, to, of course, I've been trying to see whether there is an easier way to introduce this whole idea, and more importantly, for us to have our own shift in perspective, that we get to experience, I wouldn't say no frame, but definitely a different frame of reference, on a different take on just everything. And that helps to free us our mind, free up our habits, because now we know there's a different possibility. I can see things differently, I can think about them differently, I can feel differently, and I definitely can respond differently. So I don't have a surefire method, but I suggest that maybe we can catch a glimpse of it. Now, going back to the very first meditation, same idea, touch and release. To be in touch with reality as much as we can, and alongside with that, to facilitate release of all those unhelpful habits, of attachment, of hatred, primarily of clinging and grasping to certain ideas and images. If we can somehow persuade, in this case the mind, as opposed to the body, to temporarily let go, to release. As we release that, then maybe we can allow ourselves to have new experiences, different experiences. So it's quite easy, and also I like effortless practice. Effortless practice doesn't mean we don't put energy in. Effortless practice means in the practice itself, we try not to invoke any kind of struggle, not to view the practice as a source of conflict, and we are constantly having to struggle, have to tense up. It's not like a tug of war. Instead, practice becomes one of coming to be in touch with what is happening, to be aware, to sort of recognize and realize, oh, so this is what is happening. Oh, this is what I'm telling myself. Oh, I can see why. I react in that way or respond in this way. So here I'm going to invite you to be in touch with our moment-to-moment experience as much as we can, to come back to be aware of what is happening, and in so doing, to also facilitate a process of release. Anything that is unneeded, not needed, anything that is not helpful, that we don't have to hold on to them, we can release them. And the way I invite you to be in touch in this instance, a bit different from what we did in the morning, is I ask you to be in touch with it in the way like we listen to a sound. Listening for me is among the different senses, the one which I find most helpful, to facilitate a shift in perspective. Because in listening, there's really nothing you can do to listen better. You can't try harder, try listen better. You can't, right? In fact, in order to listen better, you just have to settle back, relax into the moment, and do nothing. And just be as open, as present as you can be, and be as quiet, so to speak. You just have to quiet down and allow the sound to come to you. Allow experiences to appear within your awareness. So that's how I see listening. So I will invite you to start with listening. Ring the bell a few times to give you something to listen to, some sound, better than my voice, the bell, to come into your awareness. And I invite you to just be wherever you are, here and now, as this listening awareness, this listening space in which there will be sound, and then there will be bodily sensations, of course, breath sensations, and before long, thoughts will arise within this listening space. Yeah. And the practice is simply again and again, come back into this listening mode, come back, settle back, and be this listening awareness that is in touch with wherever they come into its range, wherever they appear, sound, bodily sensations, breath sensations, which is a kind of bodily sensations, thoughts in the form of images, words, inner speech, memories, fantasies, and all we need to do is to again and again just come back, settle back, and open up and be this open, spacious, listening awareness. And as we settle more and more into this practice, you may come a point of time where we have a shift that happen. The shift happen is when we let go of the idea of a meditator trying to do all this. Let go of the view of self here, and we see for ourselves how that feels like. Okay, if this is a bit difficult, a bit too open and too lack of focus, there's always the good old breath to help you, to guide you. You can, within that listening aware space, you can give a special place to the breath. Let the breath be a constant company for you, and especially with the out breath, releasing. That can really be very helpful if you find that your listening space is constantly being hijacked by thoughts or by distractions, and you find it become very confusing. No problem. There's always the good old breath, especially the out breath. That when you do notice the out breath, you can just remind yourself, release, and let all the other things, identity things that are unhelpful, imagine that they will flow away with the breath. Right. So let's do a short meditation, settle back into this listening awareness and see what happens. Okay. So take a few moments, just adjust your body into a suitable meditation posture. I will first guide you to settle your body into the posture, and then later, just to start off on a listening mode, I will ring this bell here, whatever this is, in 2 sets. Each set is 5 rings, with a long pause in between, just to create the kind of conditions that invite you to shift into a listening mode. Right? So let's just So let's take a few moments to help our body to settle into our meditation posture. So just as we have done so far in the workshop, taking care that our back, our spine is comfortable in the position. Become aware of the sensations coming through from the points of contact between our body and our seat, our body and the ground. As we let those sensations come into our awareness, see if we can highlight to ourselves sensations of solidity, of firmness, of stability, sensations that are very reassuring to our body and mind, reassuring them that this posture is very stable and our body is well supported in it. And when our body is able to receive the message, when it realizes that there is no need for it to be tense, to be tight, to be reactive, our body can begin a natural process of loosening up, of unwinding, and in its own time, it can let go of some of those unnecessary contractions and tightenings and start to really settle down comfortably into the posture. So I invite you to be aware of the sounds in your surrounding, the sound of my voice, and as well as the sound of the bells that I'm going to ring in 2 sets, each with 5 rings, and with a long pause in between. And the sound is to call you back to here and now, to call you back to abide here and now in this listening mode as a listening awareness. So as an open, spacious, listening awareness, you notice sound. Sound come to you effortlessly. As the sound appears, they are known by you, known by awareness. And maybe right now, there are other sounds as well in the surrounding, other happenings in the surrounding that appear effortlessly within awareness. And apart from sounds, maybe by now you notice other things within the spacious listening awareness. There are bodily sensations, tensing, relaxing, tight, loose, hard, soft, pleasant, unpleasant. And there are also sensations of the breath, sensations associated with the in-breath and those associated with the out breath. Breath sensations, breathing in and out, appear within the spacious awareness. In this meditation, is it possible to regard the sounds, the different bodily sensations, the sensations of the breath, as calling us back, inviting our attention, our awareness to come back here and now, and to be in touch with the reality of this moment? The reality of these moments may be pleasant. Some sounds are nice to hear, some bodily sensations, some breath sensations are soothing, comfortable, relaxing, whereas others are not so pleasant. Unpleasant sounds, unpleasant bodily sensations, unpleasant breath sensations. Is it possible to simply listen, be aware, be open to all of them, to be in touch with this reality? And before long, we may notice that thoughts arise, thought in the form of visual images, maybe visual images could be memories, fantasies, or in the form of inner speech, inner dialogue, inner conversation or commentary. Occasionally, we can be aware of such images, words, just like the way we are aware of sound, bodily sensations, breath. They come and go. But often than not, attention is drawn into the thoughts, hijacked by the thoughts, narrowed down, caught up in the train of thoughts. And when that happens, see if you can regard it as totally normal, just the usual thing for our mind to do. And where possible, especially when you are aware of it, invite attention to come back here and now, to open up, to once again be that listening, spacious awareness. Coming back to this moment in open, aware, attentive listening. At any point in time during the meditation, when things get a bit confused, you're unsure of what is happening, there's always the good old breath to support us, especially the out breath. Simply touch the sensations of the out breath and remind ourselves that at any occasion, we can always choose to release. Breathing out, releasing, allowing things that are unhelpful, unwanted, to simply flow away with the breath. So coming back to this moment, allow the sounds in your surrounding, the sound of my voice, allow certain bodily sensations of the breath, and occasionally even thoughts to call you back to the present moment reality, where we can settle back, open up, and just listen and be aware. So coming back here and now, coming back and just allowing oneself to be a listening, spacious awareness. Maybe we can start to trust in the natural intelligence of our own body, our own mind, our own heart. That quite often we don't really need to hold on to the many ideas that we have. Ideas of self, of others. And sometimes when we let go of some of those ideas, we can see and appreciate reality better. And we can also trust in our own mind, our own heart and body to respond in an appropriate way to deal with what is happening and what is arising. Let's conclude the practice with dedication. Imagine gathering up all the positive momentum we have created through our practice, through our meditation. And we can give that positive momentum a direction, a goal towards the fulfillment of our wishes and aspirations for ourselves and for others. So let's take a few moments in silence and do our dedication. We dedicate such that all the positive things that we create, that they will somehow stay with us, somehow linger in our body, our mind, and hearts, to help us form new habits or to reinforce all the wholesome, positive ones that we already have, such that they will continue to benefit us. All right, so that is touch and release. Be in touch with reality and facilitate release. It's my how I envision and how I practice and how I think we can facilitate the letting go of attachments. So thank you very much for your attention, and wish you have enjoy the rest of Sunday, and I'll see you around. Thank you.